Welcome to Fraud on the Farm, a podcast where we examine real cases of fraud within the agricultural industry. I am your host, Joe.
And I am your co-host, Alex.
In each episode of this series, we will look at how these schemes were orchestrated, the red flags that were overlooked, and why these crimes matter so deeply for farmers and the ag industry.
Every case we cover features true stories drawn directly from court records and public reporting. These aren't just paperwork errors, they are often decade-long operations hiding in plain sight. We're starting this series because when fraud enters agriculture, the impact goes far beyond the initial headlines. As we'll see, when the system is exploited, everyone pays the price.
Let's get into the dirt. So imagine an insurance agent, right? And this agent's clients suffer these just catastrophic, devastating crop losses.
Right, like total wipeouts.
Exactly. Every single year, year in and year out, these clients are wiped out by localized natural disasters. And it's at a rate that absolutely blows away the national average.
It's statistically impossible, basically.
It really is. Yet, mysteriously, those very same clients are getting richer. I mean, they're driving new trucks, quietly expanding their farm operation.
Yeah, which doesn't exactly track with losing your entire livelihood to a drought.
No, not at all. So today we're looking at a multi-million-dollar heist against the U.S. taxpayer. Yeah, but, there were no getaway cars or, midnight rendezvous in parking garages.
No ski masks here.
Right. The weapons of choice were literally clipboards, filing cabinets, and just mountains of bureaucracy.
Which is honestly the perfect camouflage. I mean, we are so conditioned to look for the cinematic elements of crime, right?
Yes, for sure.
We completely overlook these massive systemic thefts happening right out in the open. They're just buried under layers of agricultural regulations.
So today, you and I are heading into the heart of North Carolina's tobacco country to examine this brilliantly orchestrated fraud.
It's a wild ride.
It really is. And just so you know where we're getting all this, our sources for this deep dive are a highly detailed 2009 Department of Justice press release.
Very detailed.
Paired with a local 2011 news report that covered all the fallout and the sentencing. So the mission today is to unravel the sprawling Wilson, North Carolina tobacco fraud.
We're basically going to map out exactly how this whole syndicate worked.
Right. How a network of farmers, insurance brokers, and warehouse operators built a multi-million-dollar invisible market. And then examine the intricate forensic accounting that brought the whole house of cards crashing down.
Because it always crashes down eventually.
Okay, let's unpack this. Understand how you steal millions of dollars using agriculture. We have to start with the man who built the bottleneck.
Right, the architect. So according to federal prosecutors, the mastermind of this rural syndicate was an insurance agent based in Wilson. His name was Robert Stokes, but he went by Carl. And he owned a business called the Hallmark Agency, Inc. Now, Stokes' legitimate job, on paper, was selling crop insurance to local farmers. But he drew the attention of federal investigators because of this really jarring statistical anomaly. Stokes was posting some of the absolute highest numbers for crop losses among insurance agents in the entire country.
Wait, in the entire U.S.? Higher than agents operating out in Tornado Alley?
Yeah.
Or higher than agents in the drought-stricken Midwest? Yeah, just from this one single agency in North Carolina.
Precisely. I mean, the sheer volume of agricultural devastation hitting his specific client list was statistically absurd.
Like a doctor whose patients all mysteriously catch the exact same rare cold.
That's a great way to put it.
Eventually someone's going to test the water, right?
Oh, absolutely. But to understand why a high rate of loss is actually a massive source of revenue for these guys, we need to look at what they were actually selling.
Okay.
Because Stokes wasn't just selling private policies. He was dealing heavily in federal multi-peril crop insurance.
Federal. And that's a crucial distinction, right? Because federal multi-peril insurance isn't backed by a private corporation taking a risk on the free market. It is ultimately backed and reimbursed by the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, which means every time a farmer claims a drought killed their tobacco, it's the taxpayer, literally you listening to this, who is footing the bill to bail them out.
Exactly. I mean, the program is designed as a safety net. If a hurricane wipes out a family farm, the federal government steps in so that family doesn't lose a generational business.
Right, which makes sense.
But Stokes and his network figured out how to weaponize that safety net. And what's fascinating here is they used a mechanism we call the double dip.
Okay, double dip. I'm stuck on the logistics here, though. If the USDA pays out a massive claim for a ruined crop, doesn't an insurance adjuster have to physically drive out to the field they're supposed to? They have to walk the rows of tobacco and verify that the plants are actually dead. How do you double dip if the physical evidence doesn't match the paperwork?
Well, you've hit on the exact reason this had to be a massive multi-person conspiracy. You cannot pull this off alone.
Oh, because of the adjusters.
Right. So the farmers would grow a perfectly healthy, highly profitable crop of tobacco.
Okay.
And working with their co-conspirators, they would file a false claim stating the crop was a total loss. They blame weather or pests.
So to get around the verification process.
They needed corrupt crop insurance adjusters in their pocket.
Wow.
Adjusters who were willing to literally walk out into a field of pristine, healthy tobacco and sign a federal document declaring it a total loss.
So the farmer gets a massive insurance payout from the federal government for the fake disaster. That is dip number one.
Yep, that's dip number one. And dip number two is the physical reality of the harvest.
Because it's still there.
Exactly, because the crop isn't ruined. It's sitting right there, ready to be cured and sold. So the farmer secretly sells that perfectly good, now hidden tobacco on the side.
Completely off the book.
Completely off the books. They profit from the disaster they invented, and then they profit again from the harvest they had.
That is, it's brilliant, but also infuriating. But laundering hundreds of thousands in government premiums and, faking this much documentation, that requires an inside man. Stokes might own the agency, but processing that much illegal paperwork requires someone who knows exactly where the regulatory blind spots are.
Someone who operates entirely in the shadows.
Right.
So enter Mark Davis Pridgeon.
Pridgeon, okay.
He was a 62-year-old former partner in Beaufort Leaf Tobacco Company, so he had really deep roots in the industry.
You knew the game.
Exactly. Pridgeon was selling federal multi-peril and private crop hail insurance through Stokes's Hallmark agency. But the kicker here, and this is just a massive failure of the regulatory system, is that Pridgeon had not held a valid insurance license since 1991.
Wait, hold on. You were telling me someone sold government-backed agricultural insurance for 15 years without a license. How does a ghost agent slip through federal underwriting checks for a decade and a half? Isn't there a centralized database?
Well, you have to remember the era, right, and the structure. In the early 2000s, state and federal databases weren't always seamlessly talking to each other.
Especially in rural administrative offices.
Exactly. Furthermore, Pridgeon was operating under the umbrella of Stokes's legitimate Hallmark agency. Hallmark was the face on the official filings. It provided the necessary plausible deniability while Pridgeon operated as the vital, unlicensed conduit.
So he's essentially a shadow broker. But he isn't working for free. If he's processing these fraudulent policies, he's earning commissions. How does an unlicensed agent actually receive hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission without the IRS instantly freezing his bank accounts?
He utilized a classic money laundering technique. It's known as layering.
Okay, how does that work?
So layering is all about creating distance between the illegal proceeds and the individual. You're confusing the audit trail. Pridgeon didn't have the Hallmark agency cut a check directly to his own name. Instead, prosecutors found that between 2003 and 2006, Hallmark paid out at least $429,790.57 in commissions.
Oh, almost $500,000.
Yeah, and they paid it to various business entities that were set up entirely in Pridgeon's wife's name.
Oh, that is clever. By routing the money through his wife's shell companies, it looks like legitimate B2B vendor payments on Hallmark's ledger. So it completely masks the fact that they're paying an unlicensed broker for fraudulent federal policies.
It breaks the algorithm's ability to easily flag the transaction.
Unbelievable.
In total, investigators determined Pridgeon raked in over $647,000 in criminal proceeds from these various schemes. Grief. And he wasn't just hoarding this money either. He was acting as the financial engine for the street-level operation.
What do you mean?
He used that washed cash to pay off the co-conspiring farmers and physically buy up more of that hidden tobacco we mentioned.
Which brings us to the next massive logistical hurdle, I guess. Because the paperwork is clean, the adjusters are bribed, and the insurance money is laundered.
Right.
But you still have a physical problem.
A very large, very heavy physical problem.
Right. You have thousands of pounds of literal tobacco sitting in a barn that officially does not exist.
Yep.
You can't just load a truck full of phantom tobacco and drive it to the local open market under your own name.
You absolutely cannot. I mean, if a farmer who just received a taxpayer bailout for a devastated crop suddenly shows up at the commercial scales with a bumper crop to sell, the gig is on instantly. The production totals would clash with the insurance claims. The federal system flags the discrepancy, and the fraud is exposed overnight.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's essentially the agricultural version of a VPN.
A VPN. I like that.
Think about it. If you want to mask your identity online, you route your traffic through a fake IP address. In this case, to sell ghost tobacco, they needed to route the sale through a fake identity.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Yeah, the conspirators called them paper farmers. Yeah, these were individuals, basically nominees, who were recruited and paid purely to lend their names to the conspiracy.
So they weren't actual farmers.
They weren't growing a single leaf of tobacco. Pridgeon and the other insiders would just secure commercial contracts to sell the hidden double-dip tobacco under these nominee names.
So when the federal tracking system looks at the sale, it just sees a completely legitimate transaction from a random individual, leaving the actual farmer completely insulated from the product.
Exactly. The true production totals of the actual farmers were completely concealed from the USDA. Wow. But, even with a fake name, you still need physical infrastructure.
Right, because you're moving tons of material.
Exactly. Moving tons of tobacco requires commercial weigh stations, USDA tracking tags, warehouse receipts. You have to control the physical choke point of the supply chain.
And who controlled the choke point for the syndicate?
A 56-year-old man from Rocky Mount named Roy Johnson Rayner. Crucially, Rayner was the owner of Rayner Warehouse Inc. and Rayner Seed Company.
So he had the facility.
He provided the physical space to move the phantom product, and more importantly, he facilitated the financial side of the black market sale.
So you need a corrupt warehouseman to legitimize the physical movement of the goods. If the warehouse is dirty, the whole system works.
And Rayner was incredibly active in the scheme. Like between September 2005 and March 2009, Rayner wrote 130 separate checks to keep this parallel market flowing.
And 130 checks.
And those checks totaled a staggering $1,451,084.
Almost $1.5 million.
And he strategically made these checks out either under the false nominee names, the paper farmers, or directly to his co-conspirators.
$1.5 million flowing out of a single seed and warehouse company, just greasing the wheels of an invisible market.
That's wild.
It really highlights how fully integrated this criminal ecosystem really was. I mean, it wasn't just a farmer fudging a form.
No, it was a localized mafia.
Exactly. You had the insurance agents generating the paperwork, the adjusters falsifying the physical inspections, the shadow broker laundering the cash, and the warehouseman moving the physical product. All right, all turning in perfect, silent synchronicity.
It was a machine, but machines that generate that much illicit capital inevitably leave an exhaust trail.
Yeah, smoke has to go somewhere.
Exactly. With millions of dollars flowing through fake names, an agent operating without a license for a decade, and a single agency holding the national record for crop losses.
The bad luck anomaly again.
Right. Eventually, the sheer volume of the anomaly triggers a response. You cannot lead the nation in localized agricultural disasters without Washington noticing that the weather only seems to destroy crops insured by Carl Stokes.
So how did the federal watchdogs actually dismantle a network this tight-knit? Because dropping federal agents into a tight-knit rural community in North Carolina usually makes everyone clam up.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can't just audit the paperwork because they've spent years making sure the paperwork looks perfect.
Well, it required a massive multi-agency joint investigation. The USDA deployed their Office of the Inspector General along with the Risk Management Agency's Special Investigations Branch. But the USDA only knows crops. Because the fraud involves such complex layering and shadow entities, they had to partner with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division.
Okay, now that is the ultimate 1-2 punch.
It really is.
You have the agricultural experts proving that a massive drought didn't actually happen in that specific county, and you have the forensic accountants following the 130 warehouse checks and tearing apart the shell companies in Pridgeon's wife's name.
Exactly. The IRS is unparalleled at reconstructing a financial reality that someone has tried to erase.
Oh, they will find every penny.
But forensic accounting only proves that the books are dirty. To prove a criminal conspiracy, you need to prove intent.
Right.
You have to catch them in the act of actively manipulating the system.
Which means they had to run an undercover sting operation.
They did. The federal agents didn't just sit in a room with calculators. They ran a targeted sting operation aimed directly at the accused ringleader, Carl Stokes.
Wow.
By introducing undercover elements or flicking lower-level associates to wear a wire or facilitate controlled transactions, they were able to secure undeniable hard proof that Stokes's business dealings were actively, intentionally fraudulent.
Once you compromise the hub, the spokes start to collapse. And the fallout detailed in the DOJ press release is absolutely massive.
It's huge.
In total, 21 people were charged in this scheme.
21 people.
It included a long list of local farmers from surrounding areas, like Zebulon, Durham, Snow Hill, and Warsaw.
Their agricultural community in that region was implicated.
It really was. So let's look at the actual tabs for the main players here. Pridgeon, the unlicensed shadow broker, he pled guilty to a slew of charges, including conspiring to make false statements, mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiring to launder money.
Laundry list of crimes, literally.
His sentence was 1.5 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release.
Financial restitution he was hit with is where you really see the scale of the theft.
How bad was it?
Pridgeon was ordered to pay back more than $10 million to the USDA.
$10 million.
$10 million in taxpayer funds stolen through fake disaster claims. And additionally, he was ordered to pay $188,014 to the Rural Community Insurance Company and over $13,000 to the American Agribusiness Insurance Company.
For the private crop hail insurance frauds he facilitated.
Exactly.
And then there's Raynor, the warehouse owner, who wrote $1.4 million in fake checks to those paper farmers. He pled guilty to mail and wire fraud. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison, 1 year of house arrest, a year of supervised release, and a $100,000 fine. Okay, let me push back on this, though, because, looking at the math, it feels incredibly disproportionate. I mean, you facilitate a scheme that drains $10 million from the federal government, a scheme that operates successfully for years, and your punishment is a year or 18 months in a federal facility. How does a prosecutor justify that?
On the surface, it absolutely looks like they got off light. But if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at how the federal justice system dismantles complex syndicates, it reveals a very specific strategy.
Wait, what's the strategy?
Pridgeon and Raynor received those reduced sentences specifically because they provided extensive cooperation to the investigators.
So they flipped. They traded their insider knowledge for a lighter sentence.
Yes. When you are prosecuting a 21-person network, you need the insiders who can map the ecosystem for the jury.
That makes sense.
Prosecutors needed Raynor, the guy who actually wrote the 130 checks, to sit on a stand and explain exactly which fake names belong to which real farmers.
To connect the dots.
And they needed Pridgeon, the unlicensed agent, to explicitly detail how the adjusters were bribed and how the multi-peril insurance forms were falsified.
Because without them trying to independently prove exactly which phantom tobacco bale belonged to which fraudulent insurance claim from 5 years ago would be a forensic nightmare.
Possible, really.
You'd be asking a jury to synthesize millions of lines of warehouse receipts and weather data without a guide.
Exactly. The federal government essentially made a calculated trade. They offered lighter prison sentences to the key logistical choke points, the warehousemen and the broker, in order to secure the bulletproof testimony needed to convict the entire 21-person network,
ensuring that the mastermind and the corrupt farmers were all brought down.
You give a little grace to the cogs in the machine so you can ultimately crush the engine.
That is a great way to put it. You know, when we pull back and look at the Wilson tobacco fraud in its entirety, the sheer audacity is staggering.
It really is.
What sounds at first like a dry, boring regulatory issue, you know, multi-peril insurance limits, warehouse, weigh station receipts, and state licensing boards.
Sounds so mundane, right?
But it was actually a brilliantly orchestrated criminal enterprise. It relied on agricultural VPNs, an agent who operated as a ghost for a decade and a half, and an entire network of professionals willing to falsify federal documents as long as the layered commission checks kept clearing. It really proved that the biggest, most damaging crimes aren't happening with ski masks and getaway cars. They are happening on standard trifold government insurance forms. So what does this all mean?
I think it forces a profound shift in perspective regarding how we view systemic vulnerability. Also, well, it leaves us with a deeply unsettling thought to ponder regarding the systems we implicitly trust. Consider the profound irony of the federal crop insurance program.
Okay.
It is a taxpayer-funded safety net, explicitly designed to protect the livelihood of farmers, ensuring that a single bad season doesn't destroy a family's legacy.
A noble goal.
Exactly. Yet, that exact same safety net was systematically bled dry by the very people it was built to protect.
Wow.
It begs a rather uncomfortable question for you, the listener, to explore on your own. How many other vital, well-intentioned safety nets in our society programs meant to protect the vulnerable are currently being quietly exploited simply because the underlying paperwork is just too vast and too complex for anyone to routinely double-check?
Oh, man. That is exactly the kind of question that changes how you read the news.
It really does.
The system works perfectly. Yeah. Right up until someone figures out how to farm the system itself.
Farm the system. I like that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you a totally new perspective on what high-level fraud actually looks like. Keep exploring, keep reading, and most importantly, keep questioning the world around you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Fraud on the Farm. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a good story. And if there's a case you'd like us to cover, let us know in the comments. Until next time, remember, some of the best dirt isn't found on the field.